Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Majority Show. My name is Mark Devlin. I'll be your host for this evening. This is Scotland's #1 politics chat and discussion. We are glad to have you with you tonight. I'm here with the co-hosts, David Grifiths and Mary Devlin.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, just hold on a second. Okay, very good. And so what do you have for us tonight, David?
Tonight I will be talking about the SNP protecting a sex pest. Again,
okay.
Well, tonight I'm perplexed that the Scottish Government didn't spend £2 billion of their budget last year.
Okay, and okay.
Mark and I will be talking to Colin McGowan about his charity Blameless and discussing the Scottish Government's lack of action preventing deaths from addiction.
Okay, and I'll be talking about Alex Salmond's Romancing the Stone of Destiny, as well as latest developments in auditing.
And as usual, I'll be handling all your comments tonight, so please keep them short and snappy, and I'll try to get as many of them up on screen as I can. Thank you.
And of course, we have Zoomer of the Week.
Yes, that's the highlights, and we've got some real good ones for you this week. We'll be back in just a few seconds after these amazing titles.
Mm-hmm.
Right, well, thank you for joining us on the Majority Show, Scotland's #1 politics show. At least we're calling it that for now because we have had amazing results over the past few weeks as more and more of you tune in to watch the show, especially on YouTube. And of course, if you can, please do subscribe there. We start always with a huge thank you to our friends at UK Union Voice and also to United Against Separation Facebook pages, where many of you are watching the show from tonight.
And wherever you are, please like, share, comment, tell friends, extend our reach at the click of a button.
Right, and if you haven't seen them already, we have a new article series that's out here, which is called Scotland's Devolution Disaster. Basically, it's a 3-part series. Parts 1 and 2 are already out. Third part is coming out this evening, possibly tomorrow afternoon, depending if we can get through the final checks. And basically, it's about how did a system that was supposed to stop nationalism end up being used as a vehicle for nationalism, and it goes into the constitutional problems caused by devolution. And in this part 2, we talk about the staggering cost of the £700 million Parliament or government, plus all the waste and scandal. And third part, as I said, will be released this evening.
I think this is a really welcome initiative, guys, because if nothing else, it encourages and facilitates a much needed open, honest and very, very thorough conversation about the value of the Scottish Parliament, and it's much needed because it hasn't cost a lot of money and continues to do so.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like a combination of waste, scandal, cost, and constitutional shenanigans that I think that this were all unforeseen, or perhaps foreseen in some case, consequences of this Parliament being set up. And so very easy to come up with a knee-jerk reaction to, say, abolish Holyrood, to go, okay, well, you want Westminster rule then? Well, maybe that's not the case. There are many other ways to organise our society, and we should have an open and honest conversation about that.
And a little bit later, we have a pre-recorded interview with Colin McGowan. He runs the Blameless charity that aims to help children and families of people who are suffering from addiction. And Colin is a very passionate campaigner for kids, and it's great to talk to him about that.
Yeah.
Right. That was going to be a good segment. We recorded it yesterday, and I think you'll enjoy it. There's lots to talk about in the show today, so we look forward to all your comments coming in. Back in a second. Right, it says here, auditors. Let's talk about the exciting news of the day. The SNP have managed to find a new auditor. Partner this company called AMS, based in Manchester, have agreed to look at the disaster state of Scotland's finances. Yes. Do we any information about this company, Mary?
Well, I've seen their listing at Companies House, and it's not very encouraging because it shows that their annual confirmation statement is overdue. So it makes me think, if they can't even take care of their own little standard filings, how can they look after a much bigger organisation like the SNP? So
Yes, well, I mean, now considering the amount of followers the SNP are losing, perhaps it's not that big an organisation anymore. David, any thoughts on this one?
Well, it's a good job the SNP is shrinking in size, because I'm told that, apparently it seems that AMS has 20 employees, whereas I saw on social media earlier today that the SNP's previous auditor, Johnson Carmichael, has 650 employees. So that maybe provides some interesting perspective. The secondly, of course, AMS is an English-based company with a Scottish branch office, and they've been chosen by the SNP for a business-critical task. How's that for delightful irony?
Yes,
for the SNP's constant use of branch office as an insult. Thirdly, last week, I think I mentioned this, I might have done anyway. Last week I had lunch with a chartered accountant friend, and he said, accounts being finalised and audited and submitted in 4 weeks, not a chance. Absolutely not a chance, particularly with question marks hanging over so many purchases, given that, the answer to most of them was going to be, well, that's subject to a police inquiry right now. So I can't see this move working out well for the SNP. It looks like they just grabbed the first available auditors they could find, irrespective of ability to get the job done. And just a little update on Mary's comment about AMS's own submission being late. Apparently, it was submitted this afternoon. So Companies House says it's a shame though, because it was due on April the 11th, and this is May the 3rd. So maybe that gives you an indication of what the SNP's in for. So good luck, guys.
Yes, it's a bit of a strange one, but I mean, I don't know. We can be fussed a little bit about auditing if it's if it's actually going to make a difference or not. So I mean, it's an ongoing saga. So it's just one part of the puzzle, I suppose, of what's happening in the SNP at the moment. Desperate to find any company they possibly could to do this. Now, perhaps 20 people can, well, a firm of 20 people can handle this. Perhaps not. Who knows? We'll find out soon enough. I'm sure the Electoral Commission will have plenty to say about that. But in more interesting news, perhaps, more entertaining news anyway, Alex Salmond and Wings have been talking about how Humza Yousaf should have held the Stone of Destiny hostage. They love this story. So it can't be used on the upcoming coronation of Charles III. Now, let's have a look at this video with Salmond here.
Mr. Salmond thinks the SNP missed a huge opportunity.
And in the ceremony with the First Minister of Scotland, like some sort of pet poodle parading on behind it. Can I just say that if I were First Minister, there'd be a collective sigh of relief that I'm not. The stone won't be going anywhere. The Stone of Destiny is the most ancient symbol of Scottish sovereignty. I mean, I know it's just a lump of rock, but it's our lump of rock. And of course, you have to understand why it was taken from Scotland by Edward Plantagenet in 1296 in the first place.
Edward the First.
Edward the First. Edward took it to Westminster Abbey to sit on it, to symbolise English overlordship over Scotland. That's why it was there. And indeed, the coronation chair was made for the Stone of Destiny and commissioned by the self-same Edward I. So look, it's a symbol. And symbols are important, and politicians don't understand the importance of history and symbolism. Cannot either command the present or shape the future. So basically, when the First Minister should have said, in my estimation, politely but firmly, the stone ain't going anywhere until the Westminster Government or King Charles III recognise the right of self-determination of the Scottish people.
I mean, it's just full of just insane levels of grievance. Now, I'm quite ambivalent about the monarchy. I'll be watching the ceremony, not because I'm an ardent flag waver, but because it's a historical event. And, it's quite fascinating, I think. But I'm at the age, at least, we think if we're going to have a discussion about the monarchy, we should at least have an honest discussion about it and not just based on some kind of knee-jerk reaction. Trap here is extremists like Sam and want us to go into two sides and you're either pro the monarchy or against it. Because you take a side, it means you have to kind of defend it. And I don't want to be in the position, most people don't want the position of defending the monarchy. It just is for most people. But so most of us are just like, well, how does it really affect us? It doesn't pay our bills, right? It doesn't help anyway. So what I would say is revel in your ambivalence about this issue, and just watch the show and enjoy the spectacle. Perhaps some people don't like that, maybe, but it's up to them. That's fine. I don't think there's much more to it than that. But let's talk about specifically though about Salmond and Wing's plan in more detail here. Salmond thinks that Humza Yousaf can just instruct the police to surround the stone. He actually says to put up a ring of police or something like that around the thing. Where was it here? Yeah, anyway, whatever. He said that. But I mean, really, does he have that power? And would we want a First Minister to have the power to be able to just say to the police, yeah, go and surround this building and don't let anyone in or out? And would the police even follow such an order? David, those are questions I think you can answer.
Indeed, right. Would we want the police to have that power? Absolutely not. The police is not the First Minister's private army, so certainly not. This is just, of course, pure political theatre from Mr. Sleepy Cuddles, who is looking more and more sleepy, incidentally, the more appearances he makes on TV these days. He admitted in another interview that the First Minister, when he started saying it there, the First Minister has few options faced with an obdurate Westminster government that refuses to respect the democratic... we know. So he's also admitted this stunt would simply be an attempt to open a debate. So it'd be a publicity stunt, simple as that, to draw attention to the cause of independence, which, as we know and as he knows, and he admits freely, has nowhere to go since the Supreme Court ruling and since Sturgeon effectively ended the independence as a possibility. So what would Police Scotland do? They would treat it as seriously as the desk officer at Rutherglen Nick treated the Scottish resistance, and they turned up saying,
"Oh yes, that one is
an international war crime."
That's what it's like. That's the level of it. You're right. You're right there. It's. I mean, imagine trying to drag up a grievance from, when was it? You said 12 something or other.
1298. Yeah, this is the thing. The reason he mentions that is because Edward I is always seen as the bête noire of Scottish independence, because he was the hammer of the Scots and all this stuff, and then he went down, and that's why they still sing about him. Edward's army and all this.
Yeah. No,
goodness sake, guys, that's 700 years ago, really. Come on. And the amount of stuff that's happened since then, even with the stone itself. So since then, there's been a union of the crowns. So it is only right that the Scottish seat of the monarchy sits with the...
of course, right? They're joined together. It was the Scottish king that did it.
It's our monarch, as much as
absolutely.
People of England,
I talked about this shortly.
Northern Ireland or Wales.
Quite right. Yeah, there's this myth that people portray that this is England's monarch, and we're somehow just left out. Utter rubbish. That's not the case at all. And we'll talk about this later. But yeah, so no, there's just more lunacy from Alex Salmond. Just an aging man who's aching to appear relevant again.
Yeah, so it's just a drama queen. But here's the thing I noticed. If the stone hadn't been used, right? If it hadn't been taken to be part of the coronation, then they would have. Who would have been the first to complain?
You're right.
Alex Salmond. Yeah, he would have been the first to complain. So this is how it works. If the UK uses the stone, how dare you?
Yeah.
If the UK doesn't use the stone, how dare you? And I think there's something important in this. It's because it shows how dishonest they are, dishonest in dealing. And imagine if any other party did this type of thing. Whatever way you turn whatever your plan is, say for the NHS, they'll oppose it, whatever it is.
Yes.
That's not right. It's not constructive in any way. They're not talking about. They're just selling grievance. They're not talking about a better Scotland. Not talking about the cost of living crisis. They're just not interested in that. It's about getting power through grievance and drama. And I think it exposes them actually when you see this, and you see, we've got real problems here, and they're arguing about a stone.
Agreed. I mean, that's my view exactly. This isn't about democracy. This isn't about anything to do with Scottish sovereignty. It's about pro-independence parties manufacturing grievance, and that's what they're doing. They're making it up. It tells me, like you say, it's the cause of independence is now weaker than it's ever been. All this nonsense, we've never been closer. Utter BS. That's completely untrue. We know that nobody can make the economic case for independence because it doesn't exist. We know that. So instead, they stoke up grievance to appeal to their voters' revisionist sense of Scottish history, hoping that they can be convinced that Charles is only really the King of England, which is complete nonsense.
It's nonsense.
It's the merest glance at any historical data, which is very easily obtained, will tell you how untrue that is. And as Mary said, it was the Scottish king that united the crowns. I mean, seriously, guys, how long are we going to have to keep on listening to this complete revision of history, complete fake revision of history? It is quite ludicrous. And if that's all they've got, then they've really got nothing at all.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. But I wonder, it appeals to a certain group of people who are Republicans. Maybe there's some part of that, like Irish nationalists or people who are interested in Irish republicanism for a start.
Yes.
And there's some socialists as well in amongst their Republicans. But Alex Salmond never really was for that before, and the SNP weren't for that before. The SNP were always about having the monarchy, although Humza Yousaf said that was a lie. He admitted that was a lie. So, I mean, they've been lying to us all this. First of all, they've been lying to us all this time about using the monarchy, and then now they've exposed themselves as being Republicans, and every front page of the national newspaper is anti-monarchy, and I think it's a little bit, it's a little bit distasteful, really. I think to my mind, it's like, to a lot of people, it's like we're in this together. Right, we're not. You can't run away from this, and you can. It's fair. It's not. It's just making grievance for your own power, and I don't think that's right. It's not really helping anyone.
Well, I mean, you've touched on something I feel very strongly, and that is there is a disproportionate level of influence within the SNP from those of an Irish Republican bent. I think that's indisputable. I think that is absolutely the case. And I think a lot of the belly aching that you see from the SNP is aimed at that particular demographic. And that's fine if that's what they want to do, but no one will ever convince me that has any connection with Scottish identity. It doesn't.
Yeah, so I mean, both myself and Mary are from Irish descent,
sure.
And it's
we're also from English descent.
Yeah, as well, and as well mixed
Welsh
up
descent
a bit,
as well.
but primarily Irish descent, and our families came here for a better life.
Yep.
That's what it's about. And I think to hark back to whether they're harking back to some grievance in Ireland or whether they're harking back to 12, whenever it is, for some other grievance, it's just all the same thing. It's just a grievance, right?
Quite.
It's not, and people standing there, Salmond, amplifying this. And that's the thing, trying to get their own power, trying to stay relevant, trying to create drama, as someone put down there, stirring that it's, that's not, it's just not really a good way to behave. Let's put it that way. Or professional, or not professional, is the right word, but just mature.
That's not a responsible way to behave, is it?
Responsible, yes, that's right. We've got trying to get some grown-up politics going here. Anyway, one thing I want to say about that, by the way, Nationals like to say that the stone is a symbol of Scottish sovereignty, but in fact, I know a bigger symbol of Scottish sovereignty, which was the 2 million Scots who voted to remain in the UK. Right, coming up, we have an interview with Colin McGowan, who is the head of the Blameless charity. So we'll be back in a second. Right, so yesterday we had a chat with Colin McGowan from the charity Blameless. He's trying to build a recovery centre for addicts in an unused part of Hamilton Academical Stadium, which he owns. But he keeps getting knocked back by the Scottish Government. Is it just a sign of Scottish Government's lip service to Scotland's drug alcohol disaster? So we'll have a look at that, and we'll see you back in a little while. So we're going to extend a warm welcome to Colin McGowan, who's the owner of Hamilton Accies Stadium and surrounding property. He's also the trustee of children's charity Blameless, which is dedicated to helping children and families of people suffering from addiction. Welcome to the show, Colin. It's a pleasure
thanks for having me.
To have you with us. Tell us a little bit, to get started, tell us a little bit about your journey with recovery.
Well, I've been personally 40 years in recovery. I get sober through a 12-step recovery program, and I've never forgotten the differences that's made in my life. So I've dedicated good parts of my life to carrying out 12-step work and helping anywhere I can in the field of addiction.
And Colin, just how bad is the problem in Scotland?
In Scotland, it's quite unbelievable. See, to get into some of the facts, obviously I've been involved in it a long time. And I know most of the numbers to memory. Last year there was 1,330 drug deaths. Again, an increase. 1,245 alcohol deaths. Again, an increase. And there was 753 suicides, and many of them involved the alcohol and drugs, although there was also mental health issues, and you know that and it's just climbing all the time. It's just getting worse.
Well, in the video that we're going to show after the show, you say that there's over 28,000 people have died in the past decade, and you describe that as a decade of pain. What have you been doing about this? What kind of efforts have you been making to try and improve this problem?
We worked for 2 years. I've worked for many years, but we worked for the last 2 years with the Blue Triangle and Ian McFarlane, a remarkable man that we worked for, to bring a recovery and wellbeing village where it was much needed into the heart of Lanarkshire, and it wasn't to be.
Well, why was that? Was there some problem with government response?
Well, initially the government engaged with Angela Constance, the then drugs minister, and it all sounded very positive. There was it got so much support. Every one of the addiction services supported it, every one of them. Cross-party political support. There was a letter of support from the Lanarkshire NHS. There was people cried when they heard at the village, when they seen the plans, and 28 beds that could have brought so much recovery. And this was never expenditure. This was investment. This was investing. The cost to the Scottish government, the cost to the taxpayer. We have to address it. See the pain and destruction it causes inside the lives of families. It's also costing massive problems within the Scottish economy.
Well, we often say in this show that, I suppose the evidence also points that the Scottish government is big on promises but very short on delivery. Is that what you found?
Well, I've often said paper can't help what's written on it, but there's almost no follow through there. There's an awful lot of turning up for photo opportunities. There's an awful lot of, last night in the news, the 6 o'clock news, the new drugs minister, I don't want to be unfair because she's not had any chance yet to do anything, but she's making claims there's 150 lives saved through minimum pricing, which is just absurd. I wish to see if she could spare. I've emailed for meetings, but see if she could spare 15 minutes or 20 minutes to look at that. I mean, see if you look at the cost of ciders, beers, things that. See the fact that making a minimum price on something is saving alcoholics and people that drink themselves into despair, lose their lives, that they think that 2 or 3 pence is making a difference, and then making headline statements were saved 150 lives. It's disappointing. Listen, I'm not here to criticise the Scottish government, whatever they do. They are what they are.
But would you say that they've taken their eye off the ball on this, on drugs and alcoholism, suicides?
Nicola Sturgeon says she took the eye off the ball. She's dropped the ball. They've lost the ball. That's it's now they're just giving it lip service. High salaries are non-achievers. That's the reality of it. And I don't see, honestly, they're probably decent enough people in a very difficult, but they're so far off they're just so far off getting anything right. Otherwise, why would Scotland be 3.5 times higher with death rates than anybody else? Why have we got 25,000 people parked on methadone? 25,000 in Scotland.
Wow.
It belies no reduction programs in place. Nothing.
Well, another thing that you do is you go into schools to do educational programs. You have this thing, it's called Education Intervention and Prevention. Can you tell us just a little bit about that?
Well, that's the Talking Schools Drugs programs. We've been doing that for 6 years. It's absolute. See when we get right, and see the children. See now, it's became clear that see the promises for recovery beds. They're no coming. They might as well. See that. I had an email that they said that in this Parliament they're going to increase the rehab beds from 425 to 650. They aren't, and they won't. I'll be. For as long as God spares me, I'll be monitoring what they're doing. That will never happen. So see, based on that, it has to be intervention and prevention, education, intervention and prevention, because we can get right into the schools And see, the kids are leaving the schools without knowing the horrors where alcohol and drug can take them. So really, if we can't, and we've already proved we can't supply the beds, and we've not got the Scottish Government clearly does not have a plan. And if they were being honest, see that we've dropped the ball. What does that mean? Say the 1,330 dead, 1,245 dead, 7. I'm sorry, we've dropped the ball. You can't just turn around and say, sorry, I've dropped the ball.
That's thousands of lives, isn't it? And thousands of families and children affected. Yeah.
See, inside a crematorium or at a grave, they say, there's a minute, they say, well, I'm terribly sorry, but the Scottish Government dropped the ball. What does that mean? I don't, what does it mean?
Well, I think we talked with some recovery campaigners before on the show, and it's the same kind of story. They just feel very neglected by the Scottish Government. So I wonder, is there anything that people can do to help your organisation right now?
Look, I've tried for so much to try to get funding to do the right things and to help, and see if there was donations come in to help with the Talking Drug Schools programs. That would go a long way, because we have to create something where the kids coming out of schools to start getting onto colleges and into the employment place where they've got a head start, they've got a chance. We go in and we take real life stories. We've also done a book, There's Always Hope, that we give away. I'll actually give you the QR code where you could give it free to every listener. That's got real life stories and where to get help.
Great.
We've managed to get one into every prison as well. So we can just keep fighting. The Scottish Government, they clearly they're lost. They're not without their battles to fight, and goodness knows. But any government, see whoever it is, whether it's SNP, the Labour, whoever it might be, they're going to have to get up to the plate. But they have to stop turning up at places they select where they go to. I've sent emails pleading them to come and see me. I've been the work we do here has been praised in the Scottish Parliament, and I send emails to ask for a meeting with Angela Constance or with the new. I can't even get a meeting with them, and I think, see, with the amount of work that we've done here, I think we've earned a meeting, because the people. They have to go to the people, see the recovery people, the people that's been down the journey. We've got intellectuals and trying to understand something they clearly don't understand.
Yeah.
They can't, see, if you don't understand a problem, you'll never be able to fix it. There's no any point in criticising them. I think if they're see the death rising, how much success are they having? There's how much success they're having. 28,382 deaths in Scotland. 28,000. You could fill this football stadium 5 times. 5 times.
It's terrible.
With the lives lost.
It's very sad. I'm sure our viewers would like to be able to help. So you have a crowdfunder set up, right? And
yes,
people. So we'll show the connection for that after this.
Oh, thanks for it. I'll get that. Thanks so much.
Hopefully, people will be able to donate, because from what you're saying, it sounds like you're having to take matters into your own hands. You can't rely on the government to help.
Well, they're sort of leaderless as well just now. So I don't think there's MD. I don't think there's MD driving the bus. Yeah.
Well, that's a whole different matter. Okay, Colin, thank you very much for coming to see us today. That was Colin McGowan, who is owner of Hamilton Accy Stadium and trustee of children's charity Blameless, which helps children and families of people recovering from addiction.
Thanks so much for having me. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin.
Right, well, there you have that. Get quite impassioned at the end there by Colin. You can see his frustration at the Scottish Government. If you remember a few months back, we had Anne-Marie Ward on the show, and she also runs another drug rehab charity, and the story was very similar. It seems to be the case when anyone is not in the government, anyone privately comes up with some kind of initiative, the Scottish Government just really shoots it down. They don't want to be involved, and they're just not interested, really.
Absolutely. I noticed one of the comments here mirrors something that was said to me the last time I was arguing with a nationalist. I talked about this last week. I think the guy's name's Stuart Gilchrist. He said, the Scottish Government wants to introduce a more European style of dealing with drug users, but they're not allowed to. Held back again. Okay, Stuart, let me just tell you two things on what you've just said. Firstly, as Colin said, the Scottish drug laws or the drug policy implemented by the UK government applies equally in England as it does in Scotland. So the laws are the same on drug matters in both England and Scotland. Yet Scotland's death rate from drugs is over 3 times higher than England. So we're doing something wrong in Scotland that they're not doing in England, where the same law applies. So that's point number one. And point number two, your precious, I want to do it the same in Europe, means adopting the Portuguese method, which is safe consumption rooms, otherwise known as shooting galleries. That means you have a building where junkies can go along with their stolen drugs, which they get presumably by breaking into a house on the way there, but they can shoot up using a nice clean needle. Isn't that lovely? Listen, you don't get things better with drug users by encouraging them to take more drugs. So you can forget that nonsense. You should listen to a guy like Colin a little bit more avidly, because he's right involved in this, and all you can do is spout a lot of nationalist nonsense. So you've got really no right saying that. So please do some investigation before you come up with this nonsense in future. Thank you.
Right. Yes. Well, okay. It's a very difficult situation, but we know certainly one thing: the Scottish government is doing the wrong thing, whatever that is.
Yeah.
That's as simple as that. So, at very minimum, there should be a public review of what's going on. The UK government should be involved at the very minimum. Now, let's have a look at how you can help. You can go to Crowdfunder, Talking School Drugs Programme, and I put this wee QR code up here, which you see there. You can just rewind the show, put that into your phone, and go and have a look at it. They've just started this thing here, so we've got a big target. So if you can, anything you can do to help them would be most appreciated. Now, also, Colin mentioned that we were going to show something at the end of the show. We're not able to do that for technical reasons this week, but we might actually just put out his message as a separate live stream anyway. We covered a lot of it anyway in the interview, but be good to see him. I mean, this kind of thing needs as much exposure, really, as it can get. Coming up, big thanks to Colin, of course, for coming onto the show.
Thanks,
as well. Thank you. And we hope that you do well. Coming up, David is going to talk about yet another SNP sex pest. Oh, come on. Really? Not another one. All right, back in a second. Right, David, on you go.
Indeed. Okay, so guys, another day, another SNP sex pest story, and one with a disgraceful, if wholly predictable, really, outcome. You may remember last July, a gentleman called Jordan Linden, who I believe is David Linden, David Very, Very Clear Linden's cousin. Jordan Linden was forced to step down as the SNP council leader in North Lanarkshire, and he also left the party. And this occurred after he was alleged to have sexually harassed a teenager at a party. Sounds familiar, this story, doesn't it? Anyway, 2 weeks ago, it was announced that... Yeah, I know, it's just always the same.
Sadly so, yeah.
Indeed. 2 weeks ago, it was announced that the SNP had dropped its investigation into Linden as he's no longer a party member. Oh, isn't that great? And just after, the very same day, I received a private message from a stranger, somebody I'd never communicated with before, who made a very precise prediction. He said the 9 North Lanarkshire SNP councillors, the same people who had called on the party to expel Linden when the accusations of sexual harassment arose, were about to be disciplined by the party. That's the councillors who complained about him, not Linden, but the councillors who said, listen, this guy's I've been accused of something, you should really have discipline him. My source even told me the date on which the disciplinary hearing would take place, and that was the 2nd of May, yesterday. And in today's paper, we saw confirmation my source was absolutely spot on. And unbelievably, guys, 2 North Lanarkshire SNP councillors have been expelled from the SNP for criticising the sex pest Jordan Linden.
Wow.
I know. It's considered these councillors who called on Linden to leave the party were guilty of, how do you like this, bringing the party into disrepute. As a reminder, no actions been taken against Linden because he's no longer a member. But the councillors who spoke out against him have brought the party into disrepute. What do you think about that, Mark and Mary?
Well, they obviously, I think what they're trying to do is actively get rid of anyone who might be quite decent in the party.
Yes.
Oops, you okay there, David?
That's my what do you call it? My microphone collapsing. Oh dear, hang on. I'll just find them.
Studio malfunction.
Oh, terrible,
okay,
terrible.
Don't worry about that too much. Well, it kind of mirrors the Patrick Grady thing as well that happened in Westminster, where he's a groper, wasn't he, as well?
Yep. That's the very man. Indeed. So yeah, I mean, so this is the exact precedent. And the thing is, this is what happens. Whenever I also mentioned the SNP councillor who is alleged to have molested a young woman while hopelessly drunk on something to do with SNP, a football supporters bus. And that incident's been reported to a local MP and MSP, and the MSP, who apparently this guy assists by all accounts, has said to him, "Oh, listen, if this comes out, I'll have to let you go." So no question of this is terrible. What on earth to be done? It's more like, oh, let's just keep it quiet and hope it doesn't come out. And that this very, very unhealthy, disgraceful, frankly, culture in the SNP whenever matters of sexual misconduct arise, and that is protect the accused, cover up the details, and ignore or either blacken the reputation of the victim. That is what's going on to this day, quite literally. So if anybody else has any other examples of stuff that's coming about or maybe has happened, please let me know, because it's very important this stuff gets here, because we've got to keep the pressure up on these people, because this simply won't do. It's not good enough.
Well, what I don't understand about it is it always comes out.
Yep.
We always find out about it.
Yep.
So, you think that they would learn after it's happened once or twice. You think they would think, oh, wait a minute, this is what's going to happen here is it's all going to come out in the paper and we're going to be exposed.
Absolutely.
But they just seem to keep on doing it.
They never
learn. Part of this whole wished for indie aesthetic or idea that it doesn't matter what the problems are. We will people have to keep quiet, but it starts from when the people are elected. There's not enough vetting on or there is enough vetting, but they don't care. That's the point. It's you're electing people not based on whether they're decent business people or whether they have a great social background or whether they help in the community or all that. I mean, there might be a little bit of that in there, but primarily they're electing people because they want independence.
Absolutely.
So if I could rock up next week, say I've converted, and I want to. Maybe it's a bad timing, but I've converted, and I want to put me on, and they maybe they wouldn't look into your background or whatever. Not that I've got anything to hide, but the other people would. It's just anyone like Margaret Ferry. They put her up. I mean, what is her background? It's just there's nothing there.
Exactly.
There's no experience. Kate Forbes, accountancy graduate, and a few years experience in an accountancy company, head of a £36 billion budget, or until recently. Anyway,
it's even worse than that, Mark. Her degree is actually in diaspora studies, and her secondary degree is in history. She isn't an accountant. Didn't do accounting. So naturally, that makes her an even better fit,
Well, that's the thing. As long as you toe the party line, it's fine. So any impropriety is, shoved under the carpet. Right. Well, it's just another day, another scandal in the SNP ranks. Okay, coming up, Mary is going to talk about £2 billion Scottish Government didn't spend last year, but more than ever, we need your donations to keep the fight going. So, on days like this and every other day, we work from morning to night to try and amplify your voice. So whatever you can do to help us do that would be great. What that means, we would very much appreciate if you give a one-time or monthly donation, or you can buy T-shirts from our store. And I have where to go? I have a new one, which I just put up. Actually, I was supposed to talk about this later. Now I've just realised it. Okay, but anyway, this one, which is "You're My Favourite Zoomer" T-shirt. Wait, can I get all this on there? Come on. It's just the mouse is just outside.
You're my favourite Zoomer.
You're my favourite Zoomer.
That's cute.
Very nice. Okay, they're available in the majority store right now, and a little bit from each one comes to help our fight against toxic nationalism. So, right, Mary, you are up just after this thing. Okay.
Well, last Friday, the SNP Green government published their final accounts for the year 2021-22, and showed there was a total underspend of almost £2 billion, which is quite shocking when you think about it, given the cuts that they've been trying to force on public and local, services. They underspent by more than £500 million on finance and the economy, which was a whopping 20%. Now, Scotland's economy, as we know, is in a bad way, and especially that year, so many businesses were crying out for help.
Yeah.
So think how many businesses could have been helped, or could have been benefited from £500 million. What do you think, guys?
Wow, it's crazy. I mean, they're always talking about, the councils are always talking about how they're getting cut all the time, and they're always talking about how they get enough money from Westminster as well. So it's like, why? What's this got to do? How does this come about? Mary, have you any ideas where this money is going?
Well, it's not going. Is the thing. My thinking on it would be that they just aren't organised enough to actually spend the money and put, to running the programs and so on that they're supposed to do for the year. So that they're not even organised enough to be able to spend the amount of money that they said that they were going to spend. And a lot of this I think falls under, it must fall under Kate Forbes, right?
Yes, cool.
I mean,
yes.
she's in charge of the budget and everything.
Yes.
You think they would be taking like every month, or certainly every quarter? You think they would be asking, let's get the numbers in, see where we're at, and then plan the spending for the rest of the year. Are we over budget? Are we under budget? What do we have to do? But $2 billion is
this is the chart that's online now, and you can see the underspend amounts in this third column. It's education and skills, 800 million short for net zero energy, which they're always going on about. Transport, it's not so much the net zero energy. I'm pretty sure they're spending on that, but there's not spending on the transport, 475 million, and so on. It goes right down.
Well, didn't we? How many times have we been told that there was no more money? You remember, like last year we were making people were making jokes online about how Kate Forbes. She was suddenly, they were like, oh, we've got no money. And then suddenly they're finding £100 million under the sofa, or 400 million pounds, under the sofa. They just seem to pull it out from somewhere after complaining about having no money.
Exactly.
And it wasn't one of those times they were looking for money was for teachers. Glasgow City Council were saying that they were going to have to cut about 800 teachers. So why on earth were they having to cut 800? Why was a council having to cut 800 teachers when there's $2 billion that hasn't been spent? And 800 million of that was in education alone.
Yeah.
So, 800 teachers, 800 million pounds. They could have been given those teachers £1 million each.
Well, that's just another example of the incredible waste that's going on. As Rita Johnson says, new camper vans ain't cheap. Really.
But for 800 million pounds in the education budget, if I don't know what teachers earn, but say it was an average of £35,000 a year, that would be 22,000 teachers.
Yeah, there you go.
That could get paid. And Scottish education, as we know, is absolutely tanking in the international ranks if they would actually allow us to see it.
Of course, that's one of the themes of our Scotland's Devolution Disaster series, which is that they're not interested in making devolution work. They want it to fail so that they can then say to their followers, look, it fails. And they say to other people, let's go. Yeah, exactly. That's why we need independence. And so there's no vested interest in them actually making it work at all. And as here we have this. It's not a rainy day fund, as some puts it here. It's just no excuse for it. And you've also got this underspend, but you've also got, against that, you've got all the waste. In ferries and Gupta and constitutional stuff and whatever it is.
Even the transport budget was underfunded by nearly £500 million. So you had all those, remember we had to put up with all those train strikes and everything, and the government would say, oh, we don't have any money. We've got dangerously declining ferry services. And then they're telling us that, roads, is it the A9? The A9 is not going to be built and so on. And then they've got £500 million that they didn't spend. I don't know how they can justify these absolutely huge underspends in the economy, education, transport.
Yeah.
I think it just shows a basic lack of competence in running the country.
Well, I think what's required is what the person said there, is that we need to have, it was Rita again actually, said that we need to have a full audit.
Quite right, from the Westminster government. Exactly.
It's not. It's like that... that quote about giving teenagers, a bottle of whiskey and the keys to a Ferrari. Yeah. That's what the Scottish the way the UK government treats the Scottish government. Let them just get on with it. Just misspend, do what you like.
What's the worst that could happen? Exactly. Yeah. Right.
So we need to actually roll it back and say this is not the way forward. This is not at the very minimum. It needs to be audited, and to say and to have they should be up against some panel or someone that says, where did this money go? How did you spend it? Was this an effective use of it? And some accountability, some reporting.
And why didn't you spend money that you were supposed to spend? Why aren't you spending it on services for Scottish people?
It's ridiculous. Right. Okay. That was a good segment there, Mary. Thank you all for your chats that are coming in. It's great to hear from you all from all over the world, in fact, as well. It's really great. Coming up. Not coming up. First things you can do to support the show. We already mentioned donation before this segment, and the T-shirts which are going out. You can get a whole bunch of them now. My aim is to try and add a new one every week. These Welsh holiday ones are going very well, and they look good and good quality too. Of course, you can subscribe to the show on YouTube. It's going great. We had 300 new subscribers last week. Can you believe? Took us all that time to get to 1,000, and then we're 301 week. And please tell your friends about us, and push the button, subscribe, like, whatever you can. All of that makes us happy. Now, coming up, it's the highlight of the week. Yay. It is Zoomer of the Week. I believe I'm first in this one. Right. Okay, so, but I seem to be missing a bit. Okay, here it is. My Zoomer of the Week is Frankie Boyle, who was in telly telling us how the monarchy should be abandoned. All right, let's have a look at this.
I didn't make any jokes when the Queen died. I maintained a strict silence as I tried to sneak back out of her bedroom.
Outspoken comedian Frankie Boyle isn't the greatest fan of the British monarchy.
Henry VIII was a keen hunter, and judging from his portraits, he mainly hunted cheese.
And in his own very unique way,
the British monarchy appear like animals in a zoo that's fallen on hard times.
He's going to show us why he'd like to say farewell to them once and for all.
To find out about the future of the monarchy, we must look back at their past. So let's get out in the streets and raise a bottle to them, filled with petrol and a burning rag.
Right. Well, I don't. Some people have said that Frankie isn't that funny, but all comedy is subjective. And although I have to say that Henry VIII fat jokes are a couple of centuries, out of date, but Frankie can be very funny when he wants to be. The thing is, he's curiously silent though on some issues, particularly Nicola Sturgeon, and that's what this is about. He can have his views on the monarchy as he likes, but why is he so outspoken in this one thing, but not in the other? It's not like there isn't a lot to work with. We have a criminal investigation, rumours about Sturgeon's sexuality, whether true or not. In fact, that she herself actually even acknowledged in an interview. Mm-hmm. And here's a man who's quite happy to make jokes about Kate Price's disabled son and the Queen's haunted you-know-what, but he won't touch Sturgeon. Here we have a transgressive comedian who won't transgress. Not that we wanted to hear jokes about Sturgeon's hoo-ha, but that's the point. He's supposed to go where we don't want to hear.
Yeah.
So why isn't he going there? So for refusing to discuss,
because he needs the money.
Well, no, I don't think he needs the money. I think it's just a blind spot, and maybe he's pals or whatever it is in these comedy clubs or whatever it is, or maybe the audience is scared of the audience, saying half the audience are nationalists or whatever it is. But he won't. The point is, he's a person who's shocked. He's supposed to shock. Why doesn't he shock them with stuff about Sturgeon or Murrow or whatever it is, or the SNP's demise? No, easy target. Henry VIII was fat. That is really very poor, in my opinion. So for refusing to discuss the comedy that's right in front of his face, so to speak, and choosing the easy way out, I dub him Frankie Coward, Defender of the Sturge, and award him the Order of the Flying Iron.
Yes.
Well, Mark, you're off to a good start. Craig Hunter says a strong contender to start from
good.
Mark.
That's good.
Thank you.
That's good.
He's hardly the only one. There was Frankie. When do you ever hear edgy jokes about Nicola Sturgeon on Scottish Street? You don't hear at all.
No, it's absolutely crazy. It's really. I mean, I said this before. Blessed are the meme makers, because that's where the comedy is. But it's very little. I mean, Leo Kearse, who is on GB News, his comedy on Sturgeon is decent. It's okay, and his comedy on the woke things and all that is actually better. But there's no one really torn into her as a segment. I mean, perhaps the guy, what's his name, Shawnee Boy?
Yeah,
But
Johnny Boy's funny.
he's doing quite well as well, but he seems to be overcome with all kinds of other issues about whether he should be doing it or not. And
I noticed that yesterday. Very strange, yeah.
The answer is he should be doing it.
Well, exactly.
He should be doing it if he wants to do it. That's what it comes down to.
If he's not enjoying it, don't do it.
If he's not enjoying it. But the point is that it shouldn't be on him.
Yeah.
Right? And it shouldn't be on Leo Carriage. The mainstream comedians should be right hammering in there with nothing better. An easy target.
Absolutely.
As you said, there's plenty to work with.
I mean, we have a good laugh about it every week. So if we can do it, can professional comedians get some traction here? Come on, guys. Try a bit harder.
And the thing is, it's going to be passed soon, right, as well.
Yeah.
You guys strike with it. Iron. It's hot, is it? So just
a lot of iron jokes.
Yes. Okay.
We're trying to iron out the problems.
Yes. All right. Okay. Anyway, that's it, Frankie. I know. Actually, the other day we actually saw Frankie Boyle. We went to see this Bob Odenkirk in
a show in Edinburgh.
Yes.
Really? I didn't know he was appearing.
Yeah.
Was he good?
Yeah, it was really good.
It was really good.
But it was quite interesting because at the beginning, Bob came out and he did a wee funny speech, and it was a chat. But who came out to interview him? But Frankie Boyle.
Oh no!
And so I was like, well, I don't mind. I said, if Frankie's funny, it's fine, right? You know, I can compare. I can say, look, this isn't funny here, and why are you not doing this here? But you could be funny in this other part. It's not like an all or nothing thing, right? But he actually remained quite quiet, and it was quite surprising. Actually, it was actually quite quiet, and didn't want to overshadow Bob Odenkirk. So it's fine. But look, there are topics out there that if you want to, there's plenty of stuff you can work with. It's
no question.
Right, David's up next. Right. Anyway, hold on a second.
Okay, Smokey. So my nomination for Zoomer of the Week this week is SNP Justice Secretary Angela Constance. You probably know Angela best for appearing in Holyrood with a different hair colour every day. Lately, she's been at the forefront of some changes which are being proposed or made, in fact, to Scottish law. Some of the proposed changes are understandable and probably quite welcome, like the removal of the probably obsolete, now not proven verdict, which I think very few people really understand, and also a reduction in jury size from 15 to 12, with the proviso that you still have to get 8 people to get a verdict. Anyway, one change that's causing a great deal of concern is the proposal.
Well, I think there's a statistical issue with that, right? Anyway, we can.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's sure, but the proposal to remove juries from rape trials is another that's caused a lot of consternation this week, which of course leaves the judge to act additionally as the jury. So the reaction from within Scotland judiciary has been very, very impassioned for people who are not normally like that. Former High Court judge said the plans for rape trials without juries are morally repugnant and a serious attack on the independence of the judiciary, which has got a point. Yeah. But Angela claims that a pilot scheme to trial change is an opportunity to remove the impact of rape myths. I think we all know what she's probably getting at there. Did she have a short skirt on, in which case she was asking for it, or all that kind of nonsense. I guess that's what she's getting at. I don't know. Anyway, Angela believes that there is evidence that preconceptions can determine jury decisions. Now, to me, that sounds very much like an insult to the intelligence and an attack on the integrity of Scotland's jury members. So clearly the intention behind this change is very simple. It's to ensure a higher conviction rate for sexual offences. But the problem with that is if you're putting the onus on judges to come up with the verdicts, and you're effectively saying to judges, right, guys, you need to get more convictions or else you're not doing a good job. And, I'm not sure if we keep up. So you're effectively pressurising the judges.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, dude.
Yeah.
You can't do that, guys. Now, the trouble is, rape is horrific. It's a dreadful, it's the worst thing can happen to a human being, particularly women, apart from being, murdered. Dreadful thing, a terrible, terrible thing, but it should be treated with sensitivity. And the plight of rape victims will not be helped by the standard SNP whack-a-mole policy making, like rape convictions are low. I know, let's make it easier to convict alleged rapists by scrapping juries and telling judges there must be more guilty verdicts. That will do the job. No, it won't. All that will do is that might mean a few more people go to prison. I'm not going to do anything about rape. So absolutely awful. typical SNP, dreadful policy.
Yeah, well, I think this is definitely part of this, the not trusting ordinary people, to do things, and that's one of the reasons I think you should go to do your jury service. I got a letter in not that long ago, but I wasn't selected, and the reason is, what if you don't go?
Yeah,
who's left? Right, the people who are left are the people who maybe people who don't have jobs, and the people, whatever it is, people who tried to get out of it, and all this. The people who didn't try to get out of it, perhaps they're, you need everyone to be involved in this thing, because it's supposed to be a jury of your peers. And I've all seen 12 Angry Men. Not you want to be a hero of the situation, but you have to take into account what's going on there, and it's part of the system that you're judged by ordinary people. And I think your point there is quite correct. We've seen how political pressure has been applied onto the police force. We've seen how it's been applied onto the Crown Office. I wonder
what would happen in the Alex Salmond case.
Yeah, quite.
If it was just the judge deciding.
Yeah, exactly.
The point about...
It was a judge deciding, wasn't it?
No, it was a jury.
It was a jury that let them off.
Verdict. One of the verdicts.
Oh, yes, you're right. It was a jury. Sorry.
Yeah. And the point about juries, having preconceptions, it's like, well, I'd rather have, take my chances with 12 or 15 people, and maybe some of them have got some preconceptions, than having one judge who has a preconception.
Exactly, yeah. Quite, yeah. So, no, very, very poor, dreadfully ill-conceived policy from a woman who just appears to be looking for attention, the way she behaves. So that's why you're my nomination for Zoomer of the Week, Angela Constance.
Well, David, you've got a vote here. Rita Johnson said that you've won, but Rita, you haven't even heard mine yet.
Yes,
mine is even better.
And we will hear yours in just a second, Mary.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, well, my nomination for Zoomer of the Week this week is the Scottish Government and Calmac, especially Calmac. They're paying £1.6 million in salaries to the crew of the Glen Sannox. That is the ill-fated ferry, which has never actually sailed, except for that photo opportunity, the PR stunt, when they painted on some windows and kind of let it out on the water. Apart from that, it's never actually sailed. So how on earth can they be paying £1.6 million for a year's salaries? Apparently, this is to cover 14 staff that have been hired. Now, I mean, the ship is still in Ferguson Marine. It's not going anywhere. They haven't finished building it.
How is this even possible? I'm reading this article while we're talking here.
Yeah. So Scottish taxpayers are being cheated out of £1.6 million for 14 members of the crew. They apparently have 3 masters, not just one, 3 masters, 3 chief engineers, 3 second engineers,
shifts,
and 5 shifts. What? It's not going anywhere. Why do you need shifts?
Oh.
Why do you need 3 shifts on a ship that's sitting in Ferguson Marine without, it's not even able to go? And we've got 3 second engineers and 5 third engineers. Now, apparently these people were all hired in February of 2022. So they've been on the payroll for 15 months already.
But they're not working in another ship then?
No, they're getting full salaries. Well, let me tell you what they're getting paid. It's for their salary, travel, and subsistence. Subsistence.
Right.
The pension and national insurance contributions.
Oh,
I mean, what the hell are they doing?
Right.
So, I mean, and now we've been told there's going to be a lot more delays to the ferries. So that means they're going to be on the payroll even longer. So
I don't even know what to say to that, guys.
Well, I know you've been laughing, but I'm half laughing and I'm half angry that these fools they're just allowed to keep pouring taxpayer money down the drain. It's ridiculous.
It is shocking. Right. Okay. Well, David, it's up to you to decide. From those 3 classics, we have the ferry payments. We have Angela Constance, your own, and mine, which was Frankie Boyle.
Right, Frankie Boyle's too irrelevant. He's just not funny anymore to me. I don't like him anymore.
No,
whereas I never choose my own. So Rita, being my big supporter on here, Rita said he was actually jumped across from me to Mary, so I've got to go with Rita.
Oh, that's okay, Rita. I didn't mind, honestly. I just wanted to get my bit in there, though.
Yeah, but I mean, for such a staggeringly unforgivable waste of money, it has to be the Ferries. So what a disgrace, honestly, guys.
Oh,
Thank you.
Well done, Mary.
Well
Thank
done, Mary. We just, see, are like, well, that's what we're like through this whole thing.
So there's going to be another 1.6 million this year.
For God's
Yeah,
sake.
At least they'll probably give them a salary increase and maybe some bonuses.
Okay, well, thank you all for being on the show with us tonight. It's been our pleasure to have you with us every week. Tune in next Wednesday for more discussion. I'm supposed to have a thought for the week, but I didn't have time to put it in. So instead, if you can, please do donate to Colin McGowan's charity Blameless. These kids are, as the title says, they're blameless. It's not their fault that their parents are addicted to
family members,
drugs and so on. Or grandparents, whatever it is. Their carers are addicted. So please, if you can, please do that. QR code is back here. All right, there it is. If you can put something that way, and maybe tell other people about it as well, which could be something good, and do your good deed for the day. Once again, thank you all for being with us tonight. It's been our pleasure, and thank you for all your chats and everything. We will see you again next week at the same time.
Absolutely. Thanks for all the comments, guys. Fantastic as always.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
All right, good night.
Good night, guys.